So yesterday we got the Warcraft Direct livestream where we got a ridiculous amount of announcements for all Warcraft games, and we also got a ton specific to World of Warcraft. And while I'll be going over some of those announcements in future videos, we also got something pretty heavily teased that can be coming for the end of the War Within expansion. And this tease or leak or whatever you want to call it seems to be pointing to a Legion remix event at the end of the War Within. And there's actually multiple different things pointing in this direction. Now, I think we need to take a look back at Miss Pandaria Remix to have something to compare this new information to. Now, Miss Pandaria Remix was the first remix event that we received at the later end of the Dragonflight expansion, and this was an experimental event made by the experimental gameplay team that was used as a way to bridge the gap between content lulls at the end of an expansion and going into the next expansion. And Miss Pandaria Remix as an event took us through the entirety of the Miss Pandaria expansion. It was all available on day one. You got a ton of new powers, completely new gearing systems, completely new progression systems with infinite power growth, where you would basically be able to solo raid bosses at some point with new currencies to earn that you could also spend on a ridiculous amount of new cosmetics. In fact, Miss Pandaria Remix was the most rewarding cosmetic event in the game's history. The amount of cosmetics you could get for everything in the game, such as transmog, mounts, pets, and everything else, was absolutely absurd. There was nothing that even came close to the amount of cosmetics you could get and how easily you could obtain them during this event. And Mop Remix was incredibly successful. There was a ridiculous amount of people playing during the entirety of this event, and I think most people probably have fond memories of this event afterwards. I remember after the event ended, pretty much everybody on like any forum or Reddit you would go on was pretty sad about this ending, and they really enjoyed their time with this. So these remix events are definitely something that's going to be coming in the future. Now that brings us to the new information or the new teases we got with the Warcraft Direct. The first one coming on the official roadmap. This roadmap goes from 11.0.7, which is our next patch, all the way to 11.2.7, which is seeming to be basically the end of the War Within. We also have things on this like the expansion reveal for Midnight, but if you look at the strip that shows the times of year that these patches are going to be coming, you'll notice something a bit odd because it starts at winter and it ends at winter the next year. But the ending of this bar, starting in autumn and going into winter, starts to fade into green. Now, there's not really a reason for this to happen. If this was trying to show that it was going to be the next expansion of Midnight, it would probably be purple to show that this is a void heavy expansion. It wouldn't be green. But if you go look at a Legion, or if you ever play Legion, everything's green. It's focused on the Legion, so everything's green. All their ships are green. The zones are green because they're fel infused. That is the most green expansion we have ever had. And that's kind of the gist of this tease, that this bar is fading into green going off the edge. So it seems like the exact spot that they would want to release another remix event is where this bar is turning green. So the first thing everybody thinks of is, well, there's going to be a remix Legion event, because also Legion is one of those expansions that while it's in the borrowed power era, it's also just beloved. This was probably the first time in the game's history that we got a very consistent patch cadence. You got a new patch every 77 days, and just a majority of that expansion was very well liked. So that's a very good choice to choose for the next remix style event, and this will play into some of the other teases we got with this event as well. And I haven't seen a lot of people talk about this second tease, and this is during the reveal of player housing. So during this small trailer, the player character walks into their house and they are wearing the full reworked tier 2 warrior tier set. So this character is supposed to be a warrior in this, but once they get over to their chair and set down the weapon they're using, they set down a very interesting weapon, because this weapon they're using is a rogue artifact weapon. More specifically, this is one of the harder to obtain appearances for outlaw rogues called Thunder Fury, Hollow Blade of the Windlord. This is a play on the original Thunder Fury, and this is the exact model of that base rogue artifact weapon. This isn't one of the recolors. This is the base one you obtain once you obtain this artifact appearance. Now, a few of the people I have heard talk about this were somehow trying to say that this was like OG Thunder Fury, and that's what they were trying to show. This is absolutely not OG Thunder Fury. This is not the same model as the original Thunder Fury. The original Thunder Fury is completely different. Both of the blades at the side are flat flat, and the original blade is not separated like this sword is. If you actually look at the sword, it looks to be a bunch of different pieces separated and put together, probably held together by the power of the Windlord. The original Thunder Fury is just one big blade, both the sides are flat. This is the rogue appearance. And why that's so interesting is because currently in WoW, you can't use the artifact appearances of other classes. Now, artifact appearances are obviously from artifact weapons from Legion. It would make sense that if they unlock the ability to use artifact appearances on any classes from all the other classes, it would make sense that they do that during Legion Remix. Not only would it make sense that they do that during Legion Remix, but it would also make sense that going back to Legion with Legion Remix, that you're able to go back and earn a bunch of those artifact appearances that you haven't been able to earn after Legion ended. Because you never played back then, there was a ridiculous amount of artifact appearances, and there was a bunch of recolors for all of the different artifact appearances, and a vast majority of those are not able to be earned anymore. And a lot of these are some of the coolest looking weapon appearances in the entirety of the game. Remember, there was no weapon drops during that expansion. Every new appearance had to be within the artifact system. So that's a ridiculous amount of a very high quality weapon appearances that are no longer obtainable. But it would very much make sense that they unlock these appearances to be used on any classes and allow you to go earn those appearances again during Legion Remix. Now, one thing that could throw a wrench in this theory is that player housing is supposed to come with the Midnight expansion. But if you go back to the roadmap, at the end of the roadmap, when it's starting to turn green, there is another little flag that a lot of people are theorizing is showing when we're getting player housing, because it looks to be a small Hearthstone, and a lot of people think we're getting a Hearthstone with player housing, which would make complete sense. And it would also make sense that we get player housing before the release of Midnight, in the same way that warbands are a part of the War Within, but we got them before the War Within, because these are pretty big new systems, so they could want to release it a bit before the expansion so they can fix a lot of the issues while it's live before the expansion actually releases. So it seems like around the same times we would be getting Legion Remix, if that's coming, and that's where this new banner is. So it seems like we'd be getting player housing and Legion Remix in around the same time, or at least the same time of the year. That could definitely make sense that they're teasing something coming with Legion Remix, and then we're getting player housing in around the same time. And I'm incredibly excited for the possibility of Legion Remix. I loved Mop Remix, and I think Legion, as being a more modern expansion, has a lot more possibilities, because they could also take all of the powers or power increases that we were getting with Mop Remix and maybe tie it into your Legion artifacts. Maybe we actually go get our Legion artifacts again, and that's how a lot of the new powers are tied into. They could do a lot of really interesting things, but if Legion Remix is going to be happening, I think we're also going to be getting artifact appearances unlocked, so you can use them on all characters or any character that can use that weapon type. And I also think they're going to allow us to go earn those old artifact appearances during Legion Remix, and maybe they'll even bring out new ones, new recolored ones, and that could be a lot of the new cosmetics we're earning. Obviously all the armor sets we could earn then, probably a bunch of new stuff and mounts, but they could definitely have a lot of these rewards be artifact appearances, new artifact recolors, maybe even fully new artifact weapon appearances. So that could definitely be something that could be happening during Legion Remix, and that would again be incredibly exciting. But that's pretty much all I want to go over, so thanks for watching.